So getting to this point has been easy. One of the harder parts is getting involved. And, I use this phrase, choosing your own adventure. And there's pros and cons to the way that we've set up the lab so far. And some of that comes with ambiguity, some of that comes with freedom, and some of that comes with, being responsive to the needs of the community as the moment. So let's talk a little bit about how to choose your own adventure. As it's set up right now, there's really no minimum expectation for being a part of the lab, except I keep you on the mailing list. And if I never hear from you again, that's totally fine. I just assume you're off doing your own great work. And if I can ever be supportive, or anybody in the lab can ever be supportive, then we're here. So attend as often or as little as you would like. And there's hopefully no obligation or guilt, shame coming from me. Even though I know you might feel that at times, I really do hope to promote a sense of do what you can, because we all have priorities. And for me, it would be self and family first, school and clinicals next, and then whatever time you have to contribute to the lab. Now, I would say still, if you make commitments, follow through on those commitments. Obviously, that's important as a community. However, I also understand that there are things that carry more importance as we go throughout life. So some expectations that we might set for ourselves and one another is to just be kind to yourself when you run up against those barriers, or you might miss an expectation or miss a timeline that you set for yourself. Be kind to yourself and others too. I like to appreciate the spirit of we're all doing the best we can with the resources that we have. And I would probably be in a worse spot if I was in the same spot as someone else. So let's continue to enter into that space of understanding and curiosity first. Let's tolerate ambiguity. Let's be self-directed. You really don't have to wait to be told to do anything. You can explore. I know some people like more direct leadership, and if that's something that you need, I can certainly be very direct, very concrete. But I prefer to be there as a partner as you explore and find out where you land in this journey. We want to balance our interests with time availability. This is a statement we often bring up to remind ourselves of how we want to dedicate our time, because frankly, you're going to be interested in just about everything and even more, and you will not have the time for all of those interests. So, think about not, am I interested in this? Think about, do I have the time for this? So balance that accountability with forgiveness, as I talked about. If you make a commitment, let's follow through with that. And if something happens, let's lean into that with forgiveness and grace, and come together about how we can support one another to move forward. I like to say start somewhere and then grow into something else. And at a minimum, start with reading an article. If you're not sure what to read, I'm happy to give you an article off my reading list. And as you read, you build your own sort of database and catalog of articles that might inform your future practice, your passion projects, your capstone projects, and beyond. In that spirit, look for the common elements in your coursework, in your clinical work, in your personal life, in the projects that we're working on in the neuroscience integration lab or other people are working on. Find those common elements that might be underneath, because sometimes that identifies a passion area. I think it's nice to have some goals. It's also nice to be open to the spirit of the time. I think many people will tell you that some of the areas that they thought they wouldn't be interested in, they actually became the most interested in those through experience. So let yourself be influenced by those experiences. When in doubt, read and catalog again all that you're reading. I think it's important not just to read, but also have a way to organize what you're reading so you don't lose out on that investment that you're putting in. And then finally, get where you get and do the rest later. Hopefully you've got a long life and a long career ahead of you. So you may have goals right now that you might not finish by the time you've graduated. Many people continue to hang out with the lab after they graduate, but even if you don't, you still have hopefully that opportunity to accomplish some of those things that you want. At a minimum, again, stay on the email list. That's totally okay. I think that is kind of the bare minimum entry into the lab. If you want to level up your time commitments, here's some opportunities to do that. We talked about level 1, just kind of exploring your personal interests. If you want to become a research bucket member, I'm going to talk about some of those opportunities in a little bit. If you have a little bit more time, you might want to volunteer to be a coordinator of one of those research buckets. And then, again, if you have a little bit more time, you might consider becoming a part of leadership in the lab, whether that's normally a formal ES application process. Sometimes there are volunteers that participate in leadership. So those are some opportunities if you do have additional time. And again, even though this is sort of linear here, it's linear based on time, not preference, not prestige. It really is just, what do you want to accomplish, and do you have the time to do that? And I want to try to provide as many opportunities as I can. In talking about some of those leadership opportunities, these also become people that can support you in your journey. We have a community engagement coordinator whose real goal is to make sure that you get connected, to make sure that people know when we're meeting, and to really promote that sense of community that we talked about. We also have an orientation coordinator that can partner with you to make sure you have all the resources and supports to make the most out of your time in the lab, whether that be what is the institutional review board, to how do I upload a file into OneDrive, to I don't know what the hell Eric was talking about. Can you help me with that? This is that navigator to help you really build your capacity to be, whatever kind of member in the lab you want to be. And we also have 2 brainstorm community coordinators. I mentioned the brainstorm community that started as, it actually predates the lab, and started to fill a gap in professional development throughout the counseling field, throughout the helping professions, and now we folded it into the lab as another opportunity. So we meet monthly, and I'll go over some of those in just a moment, but those coordinators are really helpful in getting folks connected there. In terms of our meetings, we try to have weekly open hours. Those might fluctuate in time, but this is a great place to work on your personal projects, discuss an article that you might want to discuss, workshop ideas, share a draft of an article you're working on, or a presentation that you're working on. Also maybe learn research methods. I think this is a great place to talk about how your capstone is evolving, among other things. I mentioned brainstorm community. We have a live session 1 time a month, normally the 4th Friday, but it does change sometimes. And this is a great opportunity to connect with a broader mental health community. We read articles ahead of time. We talk with the authors of those articles, and then we discuss the applications that we're finding in our own life and our own work. I try to do a full lab meeting 1 time quarterly, really, so we can, as many of us as possible, can be in a room at the same time for some community building. I want there to be some resemblance of shared governance, so there might be some business to talk about and how we operate as a community. I think it's also a nice time for the buckets to give an update on where they're at, how to hold themselves accountable, how to connect new people, and then next steps that we have, goals that we have for the quarter. And then the bucket meetings are as scheduled. So some buckets meet regularly, some meet as needed. This is all up to how that bucket organizes itself. And finally, one-to-one mentorship. Just let me know. There's a lot of us in the lab. I don't always do as good of a job as I would like to when doing my own individual outreach. So I do really just want to make sure that the door is open, the email is open for you to reach out should you want to, for any mentorship on personal goals, doctoral studies, capstones, what have you. That's my goal, to be available. I do prioritize my time to members of the lab. So that's another just hopeful opportunity that we have to connect and work together.